Alright, here we go with part 5. First one I have, continuing on with Metallica. Black Album, I'd recommend The Unforgiven. Probably one of their best albums. And then we have Load and Reload. This one I'd recommend Until It Sleeps. This one, The Memory Remains. And then we have Saint Anger. I didn't really care much about this album, so you could just skip this one. But nice to have in your collection. And then I have Beyond Magnetic. Hate Train, I definitely recommend. These were just cuts from Beyond, Death Magnetic, which I don't have. That's the only album I don't have by them. So then I have Through the Never soundtrack, which is pretty much a live album. You can just skip that one if you'd like. And then I have the new album they released called Hardwired Self-Destruct. I got the 2-disc, which I really wanted to get the third, but oh well. I would recommend Now That We're Dead or Halo on Fire. So then I have Motionless in White, Graveyard Shift. It's an okay album. It wasn't as good as their last album, which I think is their best, to be honest. But my recommended track would probably be Eternal Yours, which is the ending track on this album. And then we get into some of my Muse stuff, which is Origin of Symmetry, which my recommended track would be Newborn or Plug-in Baby, of course. Absolution, I would recommend Hysteria. My favorite, Black Holes and Revelations, I would recommend Knights of Sidonia. The Resistance, I would recommend Uprising. And The Second Law. I don't have their first and I don't have their last ones yet. But this one I would recommend Panic Station. It's pretty funky. Next one I have My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade, which is a classic 2000s album. My favorite track would probably be I Don't Love You. And then we have Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys. My track would be Na 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 Na, or Sing. And then I have this album. I'm kind of glad I picked it up before this band ended. This is Newsted. For those who don't know, this is Jason Newsted's band. They kind of broke up since this album came out, but if you could find a copy, definitely pick it up. I'd recommend Soldier Head or As the Crow Flies. Next one I'm probably going to get a lot of cringe for. I'm sorry. But Nickelback, Silver Side Up. I'd recommend Never Again. The Long Road, I'd take Flat on the Floor. All the Right Reasons, Side of the Bullet. Here and Now, you could just skip this one. And their newest one, which is actually, I'd take this after any Nickelback album, Feed the Machine. I would definitely recommend The Betrayal Act 3. And then we get into some Nirvana with Nevermind, classic album. My favorite would probably be In Bloom. In Bloom actually. Then we have In Utero. My favorite is Scentless Apprentice. And the Unplugged in New York album, I would recommend Lake on Fire or the closing track, Where Did You Sleep Last Night? So then we have No Doubt, Tragic Kingdom. I would recommend Spiderwebs or Don't Speak. Then we have, I grew up on this album, Rocksteady, Hey Baby, that's my recommended track. And then we have Push and Shove, which is okay. I don't really recommend much, but it's maybe Settle Down. Other than that, you can just skip that one. Then we get Offspring, Smash. Great punk album from the 90s. My recommended track would probably be Come Out and Play. Then we have Ozzy Osbourne with Blizzard of Oz. My recommended track would probably be Mr. Crowley. Then we got Diary of a Madman, which I'd recommend Flying High Again. and Bark at the Moon, which I'd recommend the title track. Alright. Then again, we get into some pop punk with Panic at the Disco, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, like I was just doing. That wasn't intentional, so. My favorite track would probably be Alright Sins Not Tragedies. So. Then we get into some Pantera. Vulgar Display of Power, my favorite album by them. My recommended track would probably be Hollow. Or fucking Hostile. Pantera, Far Beyond Driven. I'd recommend Unbroken. And this is the 20th anniversary edition, which came with a bonus track, which is like a live DVD. And The Great Southern Trendkill, which I'd recommend Suicide Note Part 1. Next we got Papa Roach with Infest, probably their best album. I'd recommend Broken Home. Next we got some Pearl Jam with 10. I would recommend Black, of course. Versus, I would recommend Decadent or Daughter. And next we got another contender from the top 10 of 2016, Pierce the Veil, Misadventures. Great album. My favorite track would probably be Today I Saw the Whole World or Dive In, which is the opening track. And then we got Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. I need to get some more Pink Floyd in this CD collection because I love The Wall and I love Wish You Were Here. But yeah, I'd recommend Money. Next we got POD, The Fundamental Elements of Southtown. I haven't really heard much of this album, so I don't know any recommended tracks. So next we got Pretty Reckless, Who You Selling For. Great kind of throwback to the classic rock. My recommended track would be Oh My God. Which definitely had like a 90s kind of vibe to it. So next one I have is Primus, Selling the Seeds of Cheese. Definitely weird, but very experimental in a good way. So my recommended track would probably be either Tommy the Cat or Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. And then we got one of my favorite albums of all time, Prince, Purple Rain. My recommended track would probably be When Doves Cry. And then we got Puddle of Mud, Famous, okay album. I'd recommend Psycho. And then we got Queens of the Stone Age, probably their best album, Songs for the Deaf. I'd recommend No One Knows. And I recently just bought their new album, Villains. So far, my favorite track's probably The Evil Has Landed. From the two that I've heard, I haven't really heard the whole album yet, so. Next album I have is Queensryche, Empire. I'd recommend Jet City Woman or Silent Lucidity, of course. Love that song. Next one I got is Quiet Riot. What was this one called? Metal Health. This is the first metal album to debut at #1 on the Billboard, or Peak, or debut, whichever one. At #1 on the Billboard 200 album charts. There we go. My recommended track would be Come On Feel the Noise. Next one I have is Radiohead, The Moonshaped Pool. I definitely need to get some more Radiohead in my collection. Because I love OK Computer and I love the bends. So, my recommended track would probably be Daydreaming. Or True Love Waits. And then we got some Rage Against the Machine, self-titled album. I'd recommend Bomb Track. And Rage Against the Machine Evil Empire. Bulls on Parade. I'd recommend that track. Next up, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I'd recommend Under the Bridge. Californication, great album. I'd recommend Other Side. By the way, I would recommend Can't Stop. Because I won't stop. I'm with you. This one's okay. I'd recommend the single, The Adventures of Rain Dance Maggie. Other than that, you could just skip that one, and you could pretty much just skip this one. The Getaway, their newest album, probably one of the, it was okay. Bit of a letdown. I'd definitely give Dark Necessities a listen, but other than that, pretty disappointing. Next one I have is Rise Against, The Sufferer and the Witness. If you like punk rock, political punk rock, you definitely will love this album. My recommended track is Prayer for the Refugee, or is it Prayer of the Refugee. Anyway, I throw this one on for Christmas. Duck the Halls, Robertson Family Christmas, if you're into Duck Dynasty. I'm not really going to give that one a recommended track just because it's just a once a year thing. But this one, another classic, Rush 2112. Still a lot of years to go from that. But I definitely recommend that 2112 song all the way. And then we get Saint Asonia, which is basically a bunch of members from 3 Days Grace, Stained, and Finger 11. My favorite track on this one's Dying Slowly. And then we get into Seether before we pick up into the last video. Hopefully last. But yeah, Seether, Disclaimer 2. Karma and Effect, which is probably my favorite. This one I'd recommend Driven Under. This one I recommend probably World Falls Away or Diseased. And Finding Beauty in Negative Spaces, which I recommend Like Suicide. So that's it for part 5, hopefully, I think, or 6. So stick around for the next part.